Oh, not another budget season. These times are terrible. Maybe that's your attitude when it comes to budgets, but I think I can help transform that for you as we look at how to take a budget process from being just one of those mundane, boring, overwhelming accounting things into a whole process that boosts vision. And actually, your budget becomes a powerful tool for vision fulfillment and team development. Too many churches have a budget that's just an accounting exercise that just hits repeat on last year's spending with a few adjustments. But what if your budget could actually fuel your church's mission, clarify your purpose, and actually create some excitement among your team rather than, oh, no, not another budget session? Well, I think that's what a vision-centered budget process accomplishes. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete roadmap for creating a budget process that serves your vision rather than limiting it. I'm going to unpack the 8 essential steps that will transform budgeting from that, no, not again, dreaded chore into actually a strategic planning tool that boosts vision. Now, you're going to have to adapt these 8 points. If you have a church of 30 people, you won't need all of these 8 points, but if you've got 300, these are really going to help you. I unpack these 8 points in my book, Church Financial Excellence. Grab a copy of it, a link in the description below. And I think this process will help you regardless of the size of church, but adapt it to your circumstances. So let's start with this crucial question. Why should you even bother with a formal budget process? I mean, John, we have 40 people. We don't have a lot of money. Why don't we just hit repeat on last year's budget? Or we've got 500 people. We've done really well financially. We've got money in the bank. Things are cracking along beautifully. I don't think we need a budget process. Let's just repeat last year and tweak a few things. Well, here's some reasons why I think you should have a formal budget process. Firstly, a budget can clarify your church's purpose. As you plan how to spend money on evangelism and discipleship, you're actually refreshing your understanding of your call, your particular mission as a church. It forces you to address the hard questions again. What are we really trying to achieve this year? How do our spending decisions really reflect our core values of who we are as a church? Secondly, it honors God's planning nature. Scripture tells us again and again that Christ is a planner. Secondly, it honors God's planning nature. Scripture tells us that Christ was handed over by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge. God plans things, and we're made in his image. And I think we should become skillful at planning and really living intentionally out of his purposes. I think good budget planning actually honors the Lord, and it'll also keep you away from cash flow disasters. Truth be known, if we'd had cash flow disasters while I was pastoring, this book would never have gotten written. I wouldn't dare to publish it. But in my 30 years of pastoring, our church never had a financial scandal. And I think that gives me a little bit of a credibility to write a book like this. I think a third reason to do a budget process, it trains your team in financial management. Do you know that some of your key leaders probably don't operate a personal budget? Yep, that might surprise you, but I would not be surprised if some of them don't. And some of them actually have credit card debt they're struggling with. A budget process gives you the opportunity to actually get them to think differently about money, to exercise financial skills, to become financially intelligent, and understand that principle of using faith for income and wisdom for expenditure. So here's my complete process, and I think following this and adapting it to your church size, of course, can really transform your approach to budgeting. Number one, establish a stewardship team. Now, I'm not a fan of calling them a finance committee. I love the phrase stewardship team, the title stewardship team, because it really emphasizes the fact that we're not just managing money, we're stewarding our resources under the lordship of Jesus. I think the pastor should be on that team, and the treasurer, and maybe one or two other additional members of your church who really are very good with finances and budget. And I think the stewardship team role goes beyond cutting expenses. They should be involved in the annual giving campaigns, secondary campaigns for missions and buildings, and also analyzing how they can raise more income and how they can also wisely allocate expenditure. Step 2, communicate the primary vision and strategies for the next 12 months. I think a few months before your financial year ends, I think pastors should really kind of focus in on what's going to be the primary point of focus for our church in the coming year and share that with the stewardship team. I mean, one year we wanted to focus on retaining visitors and invested in our website development and also in getting that whole visitor pathway working well. Now, step 3, once you've got that vision really clearly articulated, a sense of purpose about the next 12 months, share the vision with your department leaders. Go to them and saying, hey, next year our focus is going to be on our visitor pathway. I want to make sure that the children's ministry, the pastoral care ministry, the youth ministry, the community outreach ministry understand this is going to be our focus. So I want you to think about that when you're doing your budget requests to the board for next year. Now, again, in a smaller church, you need to adapt that process, but you understand the principle. Get clear about where you want to aim for your expenditure and make sure that flows through your departments. Step 4, ask your department leaders to put in budget submissions. They can put in their big wish list, but ask them to have a realistic budget of where they would like to spend money, how it aligns with the primary vision of the church, so there is a strength around that alignment flowing through the whole church, and get that done a few months before the financial year ends. Now, again, in a smaller church, you think, we don't need 3 months for that, John. 3 weeks is fine. Great. Adapt it to your role. But what I would suggest to you is don't wait until the last minute. Don't just cobble something together and hope it'll work. Have a process and a timeline that prevents chaos and last minute planning. Step 5, create a draft budget. Get the stewardship team to prepare a comprehensive draft, all the ministry areas, the operating costs, salaries, mortgage payments, insurance, and utilities, and everything. And I think it's always important at that point to include a provision for savings. Now, I can hear some pastors already going, saving? You really think we've got that money to save? Well, let me say to you, I think here's a wise way to approach your budget. Even if you set aside 1% of your income for savings and to say, look, there's no way, John, we could save 10%. I think 10% is actually a good target. We couldn't do that, John. So we're not even going to bother with anything. No. Start with 1%. Maybe put it into a separate account, but build savings. I mean, this is an important way to live personally, but I think churches need to do this as well. And maybe walk gradually towards that 10% of your income and savings. Step 6, fine-tune and balance the draft. Work with the stewardship team until the budget is balanced or you arrive at an agreed faith gap. Faith gaps are not my preferred method of operating, but sometimes as part of leading a church, you have to say, we're going to believe God for $100,000. We think we'll only get to 95. We need to spend 110. Or that faith gap is $5, $10, $15,000. All right, we're going to go ahead with the budget with a faith gap. We'll believe the Lord and we'll also monitor carefully everything that's going on. Step 7, take the budget prepared by the stewardship team to your board and maybe to your members if that's your process, whatever your process is. Take it somewhere where it's approved, where there is a sign off and you go, we're good to go. Step 8, after the budget is approved, everyone's told about this is what you're going to have to spend. Here's our focal point, visitor pathway. Step 8, break the budget when you need to. Have an agreed process for when circumstances require tightening the belt. And actually, we can't spend that money this year. We just don't have it. Or actually, we're running above budget and income. We can throw another few $1,000s at our visitor pathway. We can get new signs in the car park, in the foyer, around our church that really make it a lot easier for visitors to see where to go in the church. And have a process for those decisions where you're going to change. Now, also give some thought to a 2-stream budget approach, and I unpack this in depth in my book. Stream 1 covers operations, staff, renting, mortgage, administration, utilities, weekend services. Stream 2 can cover more engaging, giving opportunities. I mean, who wants to give money to pay the power bill? Not many. but a renovation of the building, a missions project overseas, a church plant in the town next to us, a community outreach to people in need in our church. That stream too gives you an opportunity to raise funds in a secondary giving program. And I think you'll find younger generations especially love giving to specific programs rather than general operations. Remember, it's important to clearly communicate to your church that giving to general operations needs to be an absolute commitment, but that secondary giving, that two-stream approach, can really raise other funds as well. Now, let me also share some practical spending guidelines based on your regular Sunday offerings. And I often get questions from pastors of how much of our income should we spend on a mortgage, on a salary, on ministries, on administration. So here's my general, if you like, view of this. And it will vary according to size of churches, but I think you need to have a look at these areas and see, are we falling within normative parameters? So I encourage churches to look at spending 40 to 50% of their regular Sunday offerings on salaries. I'm excluding missions and building budgets here as a separate entity, but 40 to 50% on salaries. Generally, that will be higher in smaller churches, but I think in your medium and large churches, it needs to sit in that sweet spot. 15 to 20% on ministry areas, 15 to 25% on facilities, including debt, mortgage, leases, and on maintenance, and then 10% on savings, and you can gradually move to that. Now, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, of course, but these are general guidelines I give to churches. They're not rigid rules, but they give you a bit of a rule of thumb of working out how to work with your money and where to spend it. Because I find if a church is spending 60 to 70% on salaries and they have a mortgage as well, you know what's going to suffer? Their ministry areas, their youth ministry, their children's ministry, their worship areas. So be wise with this. And in fact, I think it's important that pastors and church leaders and boards understand the principle given to me by my good friend, Pastor Phil Pringle: use faith for income and wisdom for expenditure. And in this video, I unpack this principle of faith for income, wisdom for expenditure, and you should not misuse faith when it comes to expenditure. Check out this video. It'll help you understand more about budgeting process, but even more importantly, on how to believe God for the provision of your church.